Let's just dive right into it off of the deep end. The conversation has been centered ever since he's got benched as to whether he's a Hall of Famer or not. And everybody's talking about this and that and criteria and what he did with the Legion of Boom versus what he did without the Legion of Boom and his stats and all that. And the one thing I always say is when we talk about quarterbacks, really any skill position this era, it's hard to just bring up stats. In any sports conversation, if stats is your sole argument, then you stepping into the wrong conversation, especially with us. So that's one thing that I think, how much weight are you putting into that? And so it led me to ask a certain question, which, and Jay, if you want to jump in here, by all means, feel free because we would love to hear your perspective on this. When it comes to Hall of Fame qualifications, if you want to give me your criteria, by all means, feel free. B, do you value more the longevity of the player or do you value more the peak of the player? And there are certain players like Frank Gore. He never really had a peak, but he had longevity. On the flip side, there's guys Sterling Sharp, Terrell Davis, who are in the Hall of Fame. And basically, their entire career was a peak because they only played for so long. Megatron, he didn't have the longevity. Same with Barry Sanders, but they had a peak. They had certain production. And I think Russell Wilson, for some people, are, at least in my opinion, if they want to argue in favor of him being in the Hall of Fame, they should look at his peak. But the problem with his peak is it was from 2015 to 2019. So even his peak wasn't quite as long as some of these guys with shorter careers. So, fellas, I'm gonna open up the floor. First conversation of the day. NFL Hall of Fame. Do you weigh more about peak or about longevity?
Balance. I think a balance is because it can go either way. One thing I think that this is a common mistake when you're talking Hall of Fame across sports. This shit is not a monolith. It's not going to be the same weight for every player. It's going to be differences. It's going one player could be on a player on a bad team for his whole career, i.e., Joe Thomas. He was a Cleveland Brown his entire career, but he was a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. Go look at his accolades. If you don't trust the accolades, he was on some bullshit about that, go watch his film. That's the first ballot Hall of Fame. Rob Gronkowski, short window, dynamite impact as far as accolades, statistics, the whole everything. I saw, actually, it was something that was brought to my attention earlier this week that Brady and Manning had a sit down over who would be Mount Rushmore wide receivers. And Tom was lobbying for Gronk, a tight end, to be a part of that mix. I got to sit down and find that conversation. Shout out to my man, Greg Gaston, host of the morning show that I produce on Sports 56. He brought that to my attention last week. But it's a balance, man. It depends. Now, we talking Russell Wilson. He didn't win it. He won with the Legion of Boom. But then here's the thing about this sometimes. If the Legion of Boom had been a dynasty, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback because he's a part of the dynasty. I get that the times have changed and it's different, but it's a lot like the Steelers of the 70s. You can do a water balloon in the huddle of the defensive huddle of the 1970 Steelers. If the water balloon would hit 9 Hall of Famers, at any point, it's going to hit 8 that's in the Hall. If they're worthy of being in the Hall, they dominated a period. It's a little different when you start talking about Russell Wilson, and also he's a quarterback, so he's got a lot of the criteria to get there, but the back end is what people will remember. Not quite as extreme, and I'll pass it to Jerm right after this, but not as quite as extreme how people view Dwight Howard after Orlando on the basketball side. You would see it in comments on all through social media. How is he a Hall of Famer? Dude, he was a Hall of Famer just on Orlando resume. His 8 years in Orlando was good enough to get him in the Hall. I can't say the same for Russ and the Seahawks now. And that's not even just without even looking at his resume. I won't even go there, but I don't think it weighs to the same way that it would for Dwight. But I'm not against Russ being a Hall of Fame quarterback either. That's just me personally.
So before you jump in there, Jerm, Ham just broke it down from such a beautiful perspective. The conversation you're referring to, Jay, was called Rushmore's on X. And like I said on Friday, shout out to Happy Hour with Johnny Radio. Shout out to the producer as well. What I only listen to Happy Hour and player interview. That to me, I qualified as a player interview because it was the two greatest quarterbacks of our generation. And the way they talked about certain things, A, gave you a great perspective. B, it was like, how are you going to argue? Brady's argument for Gronk was he's the only person that could consistently get open on Revis. And Brady said Revis is the best man corner of this generation. Peyton said, I'm not leaving Marvin Harrison out because everything he did looked exactly the same. So how could you take him out when he was such a route technician and he was always open? So it's worth a watch. We hardly promote other stuff, but that is worth the watch. It's called Rushmore's on X. Good, True.
Just to segue this, I threw that in our group chat.
Did you?
That's in our group chat, bro.
All right. All right.
The synergy is never
Yes.
off around here.
There you go. Look at that. There you go.
Because that was thrown in the chat 3 days ago.
Unbelievable.
I was just like, because I was really listening to that and I was just like, the details, the nuances that they were talking about was elite stuff. It's not, I don't say elite stuff as if it's not that, but just for the way that they were talking about each position and how these guys got open, how these guys did certain things. And why the Gronk situation is so funny is because you're talking about what an 18-year career. You got 4 Super Bowls in that time, but we got some of Gronk's best work was taken away from him because they couldn't tackle the mug. So they had to go at his knees. I want y'all to understand, Rob Gronkowski in the AFC Championship game, the second time around, when they went up against the Ravens, and Pollard basically almost ripped his ankle apart. That's another situation where that's a big part of why they maybe didn't win that Super Bowl.
100%.
I'm not trying to sit here and give excuses and do all this other extra lobbying for other things, but now we bring this to the Hall of Fame conversation. Hamm said it beautifully when he said a mixture, right? Because it has to be a mixture. See, because longevity alone means it's certain people like Tom who played for 20 plus seasons and people like that. But if that's the case, let's talk about Vinny Testaverde. Why isn't he? Vinny Testaverde had a better quarterback career than some of y'all favorite quarterbacks if we talk about longevity. Because he lasted and he stood the test of time from a couple different decades.
He did.
Ham's laughing though, but when you think about it from that perspective, you can argue that this Vinny Testaverde had a Hall of Fame career just based off of the longevity aspect of things.
Let me touch you real quick, Jim. I can tell you exactly why Testaverde don't get the love. I told our Broncos Nest this about a month or so ago. It's all because of the late great Fight Dog from a Tribe Called Quest. If Fight Dog puts you in the bar, it's a wrap. Watch the birdie. Your styles are incomplete, same as Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah, dog. Oh my God.
Hey,
so we're gonna blame a Tribe Called Quest for Vinny Testaverde? That's what we do.
You said that about Tampa Vinny Testaverde and that lets you know how long Vinny been around. Vinny was with the creamsicle orange uniform. Well, they was real terrible.
That wasn't a throwback for him. That was the real uniform. So Vinny played for Tampa from 87 to 92, Cleveland from 93 to 95, Baltimore from 96 to 97, the Jets from 98 to 2003, and then he went Dallas, Jets, Patriots, Panthers, and retired after the 2007 season. 20 years of straight playing. Whenever they needed him to play, he was available.
And then you got to also remember with Vinny too, his last college game, Heisman Trophy winner, but his last college game, he had 5 picks in the national championship game.
Yep, great point.
No, listen, way to tie that in there, Ham. Hey.
That's how we got him, baby. That's how we need him.
But you see how we got 20 years of a player being consistent and doing what that consistency should mean more than 5 or 6 good years, right? Because we're not talking about anything other than, did this 5 or 6 years produce a Super Bowl, multiple Super Bowl appearances, or something of that magnitude? But if Russell Wilson is a Hall of Famer, if Jimmy G puts in 3 more good seasons, is Jimmy G a Hall of Famer?
No.
I'm not asking a question for people to answer it,
Oh my
but it's the
God.
rhetorical question of Jimmy G did go to Super Bowl in 2 of his first 3 years as a starter.
Well,
And he led a team in which.
I think in that Down and Becker era, to Jim Plunkett, who not only played in 2 Super Bowls, he won 2 Super Bowls as a starter. But Snake Stabler, who's got worse numbers, with 1 Super Bowl, also a Raider, but he was a more popular Raider. He had a little bit more personality to go with it, versus Jim Plunkett, who was just kind of a tough motherfucker, but just whatever. You don't regard him in that same light. But it's like, but you're going to look at his numbers. His numbers are better than Snake's. He got more championships than Snake does. But Snake is the more beloved personality. Personality definitely plays a part into that and how people feel about you, because I think that's a large part of Lynn Swan and Franco Harris. They were part of that group, but then Franco, I can vouch for Lynn Swan, highlights a couple of catches. Go look at his numbers. It's like he got in before Drew Pearson. For real? Damn, he got in before Andre Reed. All right.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So with that being said, I think the Hall of Fame is subjective, and I think it's a popularity contest. So I think it really doesn't matter what we think or what we put out there. I think it comes down to who you like, because you can't tell me that there was 5 receivers in the history of this game better than Terrell Owens, and it took us how long to get him in there? Because he was the team obliterator, quote unquote, written by one journalist. Come on, bro. We got to really start to dial this back and pull back the layers of the bull jive here, because we're not making sense of this. If you want to talk about a player impact on the game, impact should be that it should be a certain criteria. It should be a 4 or 5 thing type of situation, whereas impact, stats, longevity, let's just say accolades and team success. If you put those 5 things on a thing on there, I bet you half of the Hall of Fame in this particular league would be out of there. And I'm not saying that because I don't like the Hall of Fame or anything like that. I'm saying because some of these guys, it's just they did it before somebody else came and did it better.
I like what you said in regard to the popularity contest, because that is a part of it. My reply to that is that slow motherfuckers ain't popular. We get the consideration, you know what I'm saying? So,
Get this
Oh
man.
my God, yo. So obviously a lot of people, and we're gonna wrap this up right here. Obviously, a lot of people bring up the Russell Wilson thing in terms of Eli. And the thing about Eli is, like Jerm said, number one, you got a popularity thing going, the media, the Manning family. Number two, he beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl, including the 18-0 season. So those 2 things are going to weigh heavily for Eli. And it's hard to have a true objective conversation about Russell and Eli Hall of Fame credentials because, like Jerm just said, it's subjective. The one thing I will say about Russ is he never had a 4,500-yard season ever in his career. Now, he did have a 40 touchdown season, and a 35 touchdown season, and a 34 touchdown season, but he never had a 4,500-yard season. And in this era, Matt Ryan has done it 7 times. We're not going to even bring up Breeze, Brady, and Manning. Rivers done it 5 times. Goff has done it 4 times. Mahomes already done it 4 times. Stafford 4 times. Stafford also has a 5,000-yard season. So does Eli. Herbert's done it. Burrow's done it. Prescott's done it. Kirk Cousins has done it. Baker did it once. Tua did it once. Derek Carr did it once.
shrinks it a little bit when you think about it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So to me, my short answer after everything the 2 of y'all so eloquently just elaborated and detailed, my short answer, if he does get in, but no, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Yo, if he does get in, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Simple as that. So we're going to leave it right